You're listening to Men of Abundance, episode 114 with Ray Matz.
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
What is going on, Men of Abundance? I have been completely offline and out of the net for the last 2 weeks, basically. Now, I know a few of you may know what's going on because some of you do follow what I do, and you know I was interviewed by Scott Mulvaney on Live the Fuel podcast, and I posted that on my Facebook and Instagram and a couple other platforms out there, and I talked about what I had going on over the last couple weeks. And that was actually the very first time that I had talked about what was coming up, because at the time of the interview, it was pre the last couple weeks. It was kind of rolling into it, the decision-making process, if you will. We were still deciding on what we were going to do, and we pulled the trigger. We did what we were going to do, and it's very personal, and it was not an easy decision to make under the circumstances, but it was the best thing to do for our family at this point in time. And I will get more into that in the private Facebook group. I'm going to be talking a little bit about that in the private Facebook group. I'm not going to talk much about it here. You can get an idea of what I'm talking about in the episode that I was interviewed on Live the Fuel. So I will have that linked up in the show notes. I'm not going to get into all that right now. Just know I'm glad to be back. I'm excited to start sharing these amazing conversations with you. And we have one that I'm going to share with you today with Ray Matz. Amazing conversation. But for the coming weeks, I'm going to have a little bit more time on my hands. So I'm going to be sharing with you 2 interview conversations each week, along with my Pay It Forward Aloha Friday that I will be sharing with you, obviously, every Friday. And then for those of you who really enjoy watching my Facebook Live videos, I know some of you have been contacting me, asking me where I have been and why I'm not doing Facebook Live videos anymore. Now you kind of know why, but you're going to have to go get in the private Facebook group to find out a little bit more. But I will start doing those Facebook Live videos again. I will be doing them primarily on Saturday. And since I no longer live on the beach, spoiler alert, you can learn more about that and why that is in the private Facebook group when you go join the private Facebook group. Ladies, I'm sorry, that's for men only. And, you know, I'm now living up in the mountains in Manoa on the island of Oahu. So my Facebook videos may be on the trails up here in Manoa, or they may be down on the beaches of Waikiki, or who knows where they're going to be. Just tune in, get the message, and enjoy the scenery either way. Now, last I checked, I'm at just over 17,000 downloads, coming up on 20,000 downloads rather quickly, actually, and that is all because of those of you who have shared Men of Abundance, have subscribed, and left a rating and review. For those of you who have not, and you've been listening for a little while, shame on you. But it is really important and greatly appreciated for you to, 1, subscribe to Men of Abundance and leave a rating and review so others can find this show in the iTunes search engine, and for you to share Men of Abundance with everyone you come in contact with, because we are quite simply having some amazing conversations here that I know other people are looking for. And it is so easy for you to do that. You can go right on your podcast player, especially if you have an iPhone. Click on your podcast player, click on the little 3 buttons up there, and you can share right there from the app. You can either share on your messenger, share in an email, copy the link, share it wherever you want. And while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe to Men of Abundance and leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast player. Now, let's bring out our featured guest. Today, we're talking with Ray Razor Matz Jr. He is an energetic, kind-hearted, and passionate leader in his community and home. He is a devoted husband, a fun-loving father of 3 children, a successful business owner, and a dedicated children's minister in Fernandina Beach. I hope I get that right. Ray is a 3-time world champion with Team USA and a professional roller hockey player. His hockey career gave him the opportunity to be the head instructor at Team USA clinics. That is very impressive to me. For over 20 plus years, Ray has been motivating and encouraging kids and adults all over the world. And you can find out so much more about Ray by visiting his website, GameChangingDads.com. You can also check him out on Facebook, and I'll have that link and all others linked up in the show notes at menofabundance.com/114. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Ray Matz. Ray, welcome to Men of Abundance. How you doing today, man?
Wally, I'm doing fantastic.
Excellent. Where are you at in the world?
We are located in Fernandina Beach, Florida, right above Jacksonville and right below Georgia.
Okay, we are going to be talking a little bit more after the show because as we were talking before we started the show, I've been out here in Hawaii quite some time. And, no promises to anybody, but my wife's got a high school friend that lives down in Florida, down in the kind of the Tampa area, Clearwater, more specifically. And we just love it down there, but we always thought if we ever leave Hawaii, it'll probably be Florida just because we just love this year-round, beautiful, warm weather.
It is incredible. We've been down here for 2 years, came down from Pennsylvania, and we absolutely love it.
What got you there from Pennsylvania?
Let's see. Going back 10 years, actually 11 years, met my wife through a mutual friend, crazy story there, and her goal was to get to the beach. At that time, I was running a company up in Pennsylvania, and within 6 to 8 months, we were engaged, married, and at that time, I was 38 years old, and it took me 38 years to find my bride. And she said to me that first conversation out to eat, my goal is the beach, not knowing what that looked like and how that was going to go, but we actually migrated south down to North Carolina for 8 years, had a couple kids, and then Fernandina Beach for 2 years that my wife actually Googled, and we came down here sight unseen, island unseen, Amelia Island, and we just literally picked up 3 kids under 10 and rolled down to Florida. That's a pretty crazy move.
That is what I'm talking about. I love that. I absolutely love hearing those stories, man. I really do. And we're going to get more into that. Before we get too much into the show, I really like to start out with an attitude of gratitude. And I know you've got a lot to be grateful for today. So what do you have to be grateful for today?
Absolutely. I would going back to my wife and my family, my kids, just incredible. At 35 years old, having a conversation with my mom, and she's like, listen, you're 35 years old. Like, what is up? I was like, I can't pull this wife thing off. I mean, I met some great ladies, and 3 years later, I mean, God blessed me with just an awesome wife, 3 beautiful kids. Couple years after that, and and I kind of gave up the whole dream deal at 35, thinking like, okay, I'm kind of out of the game. I'm getting a little older. People are going to look at me going, man, what's your issue? You're 35, not married. But all of a sudden, 38 years old, game on, beautiful family, and like I said, 3 kids under 10.
They always say you find you find things when you're not looking for them. Like in this case, I'm referencing maybe, I don't know, a booklet you were looking for, a book or whatever. You were looking hard for it, can't find it. Quit looking for it, you find it. And something similar happened to me actually, and I just thought about this really when you were saying that. Is I was young. I was in my very early 20s, and I had a very exciting life, let me put it that way. Growing up, joining the Army, going to Panama, spending a couple years there, and quite frankly, when I found my wife, when my wife was introduced to me, we were a blind date. In fact, the high school friend that I was talking about earlier in Florida, her and her boyfriend at the time, who was my next door neighbor in the barracks, introduced us. And I had that attitude. I'm not looking for anybody to be serious with. I'm really just wanting to just, enjoy the time. And that was the best. I think that's the best way to find the people that you're looking for.
Absolutely. And at the time, I was actually invited to be in a wedding party. Didn't really know this kind of acquaintance too much. And I almost brought at that time my girlfriend at the time, because I literally didn't know anyone in this wedding party. So I was like, let me just show up. I'll just kind of go to the rehearsal, just see what's up. And literally the gal that I walked down the aisle with during the rehearsal was my wife a couple months later, which is crazy. But yeah, sometimes you don't look and boom, you get hit over the head, which is awesome.
That's really cool. I love that. I love how that worked out. So let's get a little bit more into that. You know, before we got started with the show, we talked a little bit about what you do. And that's not necessarily who you are. So we would really like to get to know here at Men of Abundance. We like to get to know the man behind the abundance. So let's get to know Ray just a little bit more. Can you tell us a little bit more personal stuff about yourself?
Absolutely. Very non-educated. Grew up in Philadelphia. Grew up in the hood. So at a very early age, I know they call it bullying nowadays, but you know, I wasn't bullied. We used to call it mugging and getting jumped. Literally came from a row home for, I guess we were there for 12 years, my first 12 years of life. But just, I mean, rough neighborhood, rough area, you know, watch my parents struggle through just finances and just everything else. And it was just kind of at that time, you know, watching my father non-educated. I think his total education was maybe ninth grade. My mom got her GED when she was 62. But at 45 years old, he started his own company. So at that point, that was a great turning point for myself, because knowing my dad's background, and all of a sudden he's an entrepreneur. So in my probably 18, 19 years old, got out of high school, happiest day of my life. Wasn't a big school fan. I'm not downplaying school. If you got it, go for it. But I chose to be an entrepreneur, and just at, 18, 19, my parents always encouraged me to do your own thing. Don't worry about everybody else. And I think 18, going into 19, started my own company. Ran that company for almost 17, 18 years, 34, 35 years old. Was able to sell that, had a bunch of real estate, started accumulating real estate at about 30 years old. Las Vegas, Biloxi, Mississippi, and a bunch of rentals up in Pennsylvania. To kind of get you up to par, once again, met my awesome wife at 38 years old. We are 10 years and 2 days apart. So to get us down to Fernandina Beach, she was the younger, kind of crazy, hey, let's just pick up a U-Haul and go. Currently, I run a vending company that I started 9 years ago, and I just got into podcasting going back 5 months ago. And from there, I decided to get into coaching and running mastermind groups. And my background also, I have a crazy hockey experience from Canada to traveling all over the world, which, man, was such a blessing. Had an opportunity to play on Team USA at 27 years old for the national roller hockey team, which was awesome. From that experience, I just decided I've been coaching business people for years, but didn't really know that I could put a business together, if that makes sense. I always had friends coming. I just had advice. If I couldn't get them the right advice, I would find advice through books or, whatever that was out there, and just kind of roll from there.
Yeah, so really just kind of learn as you go type of thing.
Correct. And like I said, with my wife is a great encourager. My parents were always super supportive, and, was never, well, you have to go to school for this and that. It was just like, hey, start your own company and do your own thing. And, my father told me something at a pretty young age. I was probably maybe 17, 18. And he said he would rather mess up than miss out. And that was him starting his own business. That didn't really sink in until my 30s and 40s, where he had opportunities to buy real estate, get in other businesses. He could mess up a business, he can go in and clean things up, but he didn't want to miss out on the opportunity of, having, that cash flow or having that business experience.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Pretty full, man. I mean, your early days, very early days, are much like mine and growing up in a rough environment. And I was kind of chuckling to myself thinking about what you said about how it used to not be called bullying. I just straight out got jumped because of the environment that I was in. Long blonde hair, white boy in a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. It was just part of my average week. That's why I was so fast. By the time I got to high school, I made the varsity track team as a freshman. Because I knew when to fight and I knew when to run.
Absolutely. And I could skate really fast too. My first year, freshman, I made the varsity hockey team. So go figure. Look at that.
Right? Check it out. So, and you're being pretty humble on that part as well too, because you were a 3-time world champion with Team USA and professional hockey player, or roller hockey player. That's pretty amazing.
It was one of these things where, my childhood dreams playing in the streets of Philadelphia at a young age was, we had the Philadelphia Flyers. They won a Stanley Cup in 74, 75. And man, we were just like, hey, we're so-and-so from the Flyers. And, we just won a Stanley Cup. So that dream right there started there. I continued it up to Canada for a year. And then unfortunately, I'm looking at the Canadian kids. They're coming in at, 16, 17 years old, 200, 225. I mean, just monsters. I was this little skinny hood guy from Philly, and I was just looking at these guys going, hey, man, God bless you. I'm out of here. And that's when I got back, started my own company. Fast forward 10 years, had a buddy of mine that was playing roller hockey in high school, and he said, Ray, man, called me up out of the blue. And he said, 26, 27 years old. He said, hey, we're traveling. They have a lot of national tournaments. They're going to have tryouts for this Team USA. You had a great ice hockey background. He said, you should maybe switch over and try to play. And from that point on, I never looked back at ice hockey and had a great opportunity and was able to meet up with a buddy of mine after the 3 years of a world champion, and we did something called Team USA Clinic. So we traveled all over the world and just taught kids and adults and coaches, which was awesome.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. It's funny we're having this conversation about the roller hockey too, because literally this last week, my neighbor that lives across the street from me, he is part of a roller hockey club, and he's on 3 different teams actually down here and just down the street from my house that I didn't even know existed. So him and his son have been out there on a couple teams, and they've invited me and my boys out to go. And I used to roll, inline skate quite often. I started ice skating many years ago because I lived next to a ice skating rink, and then got into roller skating, in the 80s. I used to go every single Friday and Saturday night roller skating and close the place down. Then when inline came out, man, I was like, oh, this is perfect. I dig inline skates. So we're actually considering going out there and getting into it. I've never played hockey other than street hockey, and I'm looking forward to it.
It's great where, when I was first introduced and all my training, the guy was like, hey, well, keep in mind, you don't need a sheet of ice. You just need a good blacktop or some cement or just a street. And all my training when I lived in Philly for the Team USA, I had 6 months to train to try out for this team, was literally in a strip mall parking lot from 9 p.m. after work to about midnight. So I was getting 3 hours in. But yeah, you can. I mean, I literally can look out front right now. So when we moved down here, there's no rinks. They had a small rink right by the beach that we actually had the city come in and redo for us. So it's a nonprofit. We work off a donation. We have probably about 60 or 70 from probably 5 years old all the way up to 65 years old that come out and skate. And it's incredible. You can do it in any weather. You can do it in the middle of the street. It doesn't matter with the inlines. Really
cool. Yeah, I dig it. And it's a lot of fun, absolutely. And getting the guys together and getting those teams together, a lot of fun. So, all the stuff that you've done, I know you started out as an entrepreneur. That's a pretty tough industry to be in, without a doubt. I know personally. And then everything else that you've done, I know along the way you've had several kick in the gut moments. I'd love for you to share one of those stories with us and really make us feel it.
Kick in the gut. So let's rewind to 2007, 2008. When I got involved in Las Vegas, probably 2000, 2001, went out there for a seminar. I think it was in regarding bankruptcies and foreclosures. Well, long story short, met a gal out there. She's like, listen, the industry's booming right now. The areas are just going up. By the time, you put a down payment on a property, you're talking 10, 20, 30% in certain areas every couple months. And she says, why don't you just do this? If you have some cash, put some deposits down. That's literally how I got started in Vegas. Now, by 2005, 2006, I'm a big Robert Kiyosaki fan. And he says in one of his newsletters, if the average person is making money in a particular industry, it's time to bail. So I'm hearing all my friends around 2004, hey, we're going out in Vegas. I just made 20, 30 grand. I held onto a property, and, by the time it was built out, it was up X amount of dollars. And, we flipped it and got into another property. It was crazy. So Robert Kiyosaki said it, even though, he right around the tech bubble in 99, he was another guy say, hey, all the day traders is going to go away. Trust me. And that's when the whole dot-com bubble crashed. So I'm in real estate 2005, 2006, just getting ready to get married. I started liquidating. Unfortunately, liquidating, getting into bigger projects. I mean, from, $200,000 to $300,000 homes to $1 million, $1.5 million condos. Went down to Biloxi, Mississippi. Bunch right after Katrina. Bunch of down payments down there and deposits. And literally, when everything froze up in 2008, I have a 1-year-old. We just got out of Philly. We went down to North Carolina, and it was Ray, 39, 40 years old. Like literally from like, okay, I'm going to be a stay-at-home father. It's going to be awesome. We got cash flow to everything started going upside down way too quick. So I wasn't making business decisions. I was married now. So this is all brand new to me with a 1-year-old, 1.5, 2 years in, and emotional decisions, hey, let's just cash out of everything. We'll have enough cash and, we can survive for a year or two. In my head, that only lasted a couple months. So literally at 40 years old, starting fresh, and this is going back 10 years. I just turned 50 in February, but going back 10 years ago, man, just fresh slate. And I'm literally sitting in North Carolina, new home we purchased. I'm taking out home equity lines on the property to pay off upside down properties. Emotional decisions because I wanted to be home with my daughter at that time, who was 1. Unbelievable. And it was just, I'm digging. I calling friends up, start networking. I'm like, talking to God. Okay, do I get a job? Do I start another business? And just crazy time. I mean, I look back, not regretting anything. Of course, there were some decisions. Yeah, I would probably switch some things up. But number one, I'm glad I was out there and I was in the middle of all that awesomeness early on, but then the chaos 2008 and beyond. I'm glad I took the step. It was great. I mean, my wife, we're just flying out to Vegas, checking stuff out. She's like, man, this is great. Well, then when things started going the other way, she's like, man, we just lost X amount. We just lost another chunk, and builders are going out of business. But to start over at 40 years old was a massive kick in the butt. I think I just kind of, tail between my legs, walked away for a day or so, but I knew, been there, done that several times, not to that height and that extent, especially when it comes to money, but it was just, hey, it's time. I'm looking at a family now, different scenario when I was single, but I'm looking at a family. I like I said, I keeled over and died for a day, and then I'm like, all right, man, what's next? What's the next adventure? Where are we going? Where are we finding the cash flow from?
Yeah, that's extremely, extremely resilient on your part, because that time frame, Lord, that type of stress is detrimental to your health. I've known people that have lost their hair. I mean, literally, hair just falling, women, hair just falling out from that level of stress. And quite frankly, Ray, you're way above so many other men in that, and showing your resilience in that, because some guys just didn't make it through that. They literally lost their lives during that
Absolutely.
time frame, and it's just sad to see. I love to see the guys that are going out there and doing those amazing things, but there's a lot of lessons to be learned here. One that I get anyway is the old adage of don't have all your eggs in one basket. Which you obviously did, and many people did, because heck, let's just look at it. It was lucrative, and It just made sense at the time. But we never, ever know where the market's going to go. We never know what's going to happen to the business that we work for, because this doesn't just happen to entrepreneurs. It happens to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of employees that don't have some sort of a side hustle. They don't have their resources evenly distributed just in case type of thing, so I just commend you on coming through all of that. And thanks for sharing that with us, by the way.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. And the reason for, the Game Changing Dads and a company started last year, my just my heart and my background, it was always in hockey. Just loved it. My parents supported that. But I mean, think about it. Like you said, a lot of folks, just literally just barely made it through, or still, maybe never invested a dime after that time. But, going back to people's sports backgrounds, I mean, seriously, did we win every single game? That's why, to be a game-changing dad, you're going to get hit. I got all my teeth knocked out when I was 31 years old. Not happy about it, but I got up and played the rest of the game, and I played the rest of the season. And all of a sudden, we think we get into business and going, oh, man, it's just going to be like awesome. It's going to be great. Sometimes it is, but you're also going to get your teeth knocked out. And it's the guy that's going to lay in the corner. I promote when I'm skating with my kids out here. If they fall, boom, you got a second. Right back up on your skates. You'll feel it maybe tomorrow, but let's not feel it now. Let's get on the skates again. Very similar to investing too, where a lot of guys just kind of just laid in the corner and just like, oh man, what happened? But you need to get up and keep going. Life's too short to sit in a corner.
Agreed, 100%. So you mentioned game-changing dads, and when I first saw that that's what you were working on and that's what you had going on, I didn't really have to see too much more after that to make a decision to having you on the show and having this conversation, because I just love the title. It just says it all. But then when I looked into everything else that you have going on, it was a no-brainer to have you on and have this conversation. So let's talk about game-changing dads. Where did that come about, and what are you doing?
It came about probably 40 years ago, believe it or not. Didn't have the cool name, didn't have the cool website. My father, I love my father. He was the money maker. He was the breadwinner. He was out there, like you just said. He was in the mix. He was hustling. He was doing whatever he had to do. Now, when it came to owning his own business, just 7 days a week for, I want to say, 18 years of business. No vacations. My mom still talks about this. Almost 18 years until business got bad and he was in his mid-60s. He had to sell it. But literally, I missed my dad. Had a great relationship with my mom, relationship with my dad. I would stay up late on Friday nights and have pizza with him at 9:30, 10 o'clock. Or maybe Sunday after his every other Sunday off, maybe we'd get together for a little bit. But to this day, the relationship's not there. Literally, I can call him on the phone. They're still alive up in Pennsylvania and just rocking it in their 80s. But I can give him a call. Hey, Dad, what's going on? He was so in the work mode where to build relationships just wasn't there, which is very sad on my part. But I would call, hey, Dad, what's going on? Just, hey, things are good. Here's your mom. He would always pass me to my mom, which to this day, and every once in a while, I'll kind of pry, ask him some questions because I want to get something from him. He's my dad, So growing up in that environment, my goal was to be an entrepreneur, not to be self-employed. So my first company, self-employed, landscaping, Robert Kiyosaki quadrant, employees, self-employed. You're just running. There's no business. There's no systems. You are the system. And I remember about 27, 28, 29 years old in my landscaping going, this is like insane. Like, how am I supposed to have a family and enjoy my family? And I'm working just like my dad. I followed in his footsteps perfectly. Got into real estate through Robert Kiyosaki, start learning about real estate, passive income, residual income businesses, had it all set up. And like I said, with the whole 2008 crash. But coming back to game-changing dads, I don't want dads, fathers, husbands to miss, whether it's kids, whether it's their wife, whether it's a relationship, because that's the most important. We can, as men, if you're tough, you can go out there and you can figure out how to make the money. But when you have a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, you'll never see those first steps again. You'll never see that first training wheels are off. Here I go down the street on a bike. I've been there for all three of the kids. It has been awesome. And I see a lot of guys, whether it's they're chasing money, corporate success, running up the ladder, I try to tell my folks in my mastermind, man, you don't want to miss that. You got to figure out the balance. You got to figure out the time stuff and dialed in to the family.
100%. Absolutely agree. And I commend you for doing that. You know, my background being military, my first two boys, especially my first one, I came back from deployments, and on 3 different occasions, because they were so rapid at that time, 2-3 months here and there, he wouldn't even know who I was. Now, they come around and they warm up to you really quick, but he wouldn't. If I was walking down the street, he wouldn't have been able to tell you who I was at that very, very young age. So obviously, I missed a lot from my first 2 boys. My third one, he's 7, and he was born 2 weeks later. I was in Iraq, and I saw his first steps on Skype, which was cool because the technology was there. I didn't have the technology at all for the other boys, and I was in locations where I didn't even have internet for that matter. But I totally commend you on that. And you take it to, and I just bring that up because I want to make everybody aware that there's so many different vocations out there that take men and women away from their families for extended periods of time. Truck drivers, airplane pilots, even doctors. I've worked around doctors my entire adult life, and some of these guys are 16-hour days. It's just unbelievable. Their families are living the lifestyle, but they're just not getting a chance to experience it. So I really, really love what you're doing in encouraging husbands and fathers to lead, love, and the key word here is live. To actually live their life as opposed to living their vocation. Now, I'm never going to knock anybody for their decisions. Some people just absolutely love the hustle. And we can bring up many names of people that we know that just absolutely live for the hustle. But I don't see their personal lives, so I can't see how much time they do spend with their families and their relationship. For me personally, I just know that where I'm at in life, I just know that I need to do the things that I do my side hustle, but still make sure that I have the time to spend with my family and with my wife.
That's good. And with your background, to commend you, because me growing up in an area, I did, none of my family was ever military until I married my wife. My father-in-law, big Army guy back in the day, and just, he shares a lot of his stories. Until that time, I really didn't have, fighting. Yeah, I mean, you see it on the news, fighting for, I get it, but now I appreciate your service. I mean, it's finding that true balance and coming back where I see dads would come back and just boom, corporate right away. But, maybe take a couple months off, when they come back from fighting and just say, hey, it's time for the family and just get that true balance.
Yeah, and it's really hard to come back and do that integration and whatnot. So with everything that you have going on with Game Changing Dads, I would love for you to share any good news stories that you have that's either affected your family or other families that you've been in contact with.
Absolutely. Our mastermind groups are based off accountability and action. Now, accountability can be pretty tricky, especially when you get a bunch of guys together. I only work with guys. I would love to work with women because, the walls come down a lot quicker.
Yes.
I think. I know my wife is just great
No,
like that.
You're
and
right.
and she's taught me a lot. But until the walls kind of come down, and they get transparent, they get real, they can bring some heavy subjects to the mastermind. That's when we can put an action plan together. I mean, for instance, we had a fellow couple months ago came into the group brand new, and he just he's got a young daughter, and he's just very unmotivated, and we couldn't pinpoint it. And then we got into kind of his health a little bit a couple months down the road, and just broke down where 80 pounds over. It's hitting his family, it's hitting his job, and he ex-hockey player from back in the day, and literally we started on a regimen regarding just working out, eating right, and but there had to be a good reason why. And his daughter is 4 years old, and I'm like, listen, here's the deal. You are the breadwinner. I'm 50 years old. I mean, I try to get at least 30 to 40 minutes a day of working out because we are the responsible team here. I mean, we're the go-to most of the time in the household, and we need to stay on that regimen, if it's, eating, if it's working out, whatever it may look like. To this day, I think he's down probably 40 plus pounds, and he's just rocking it. I mean, just, the laziness is gone. He's getting time with his daughter, his time with his family, job increases, money increases, raises. I mean, it's just rocking. So most of the time it's finding that wall or what's holding them back to the man they could be, that game changer. Sometimes it's a relationship issue where, going back to our previous conversation, they don't have the relationship with their kids. Maybe their kids are in their 20s and 30s now and have their own families. Well, what does that look like? Are you willing to make that first phone call? Are you willing to, have that first cup of coffee, to get to know the family, to get to know your son again, because, corporate life took you away for so many years. So there's a lot. Everybody's different. I would love to say, hey, man, everybody would just follow this regimen, but everybody brings something different. But there's always a couple roadblocks. If we can figure out what they are, get some action plan going for them, we can rock it.
Yeah, you said quite a bit there, and I 100% agree with you. I too only work with men, and I have my personal reasons for that. I used to do personal training, fitness training, and the groups of women, the groups were 90% women. Every once in a while I get a guy in there. But even in the Facebook groups that I see and stuff like that, women do engage much quicker than men. But men, I'm telling you guys, if you look at anybody who's of any great significance in the world, not just success, but any great level of significance, they are all a part of men's groups. They are all a part of mentorship groups, and I'm talking healthy groups. I'm not talking about destructive type of groups that are out there, because there are plenty of those as well. And I just find it, everything that you just said, Ray, 100% agree. And it's just so important for men to be in these groups and have these conversations. And you're right. When people started approaching me and asking me to coach them in living a life of abundance or helping them with this and that, I started thinking about, my initial thought process was to develop a program, something that's kind of a step-by-step. But as I was doing it, I realized that the guys I was communicating with, this one wouldn't work with this one wouldn't work with that one. There's no set, this is what you do. We just have to sit down and have the conversations, and I find that it's best done in these mastermind groups. So I commend you again for setting those up and doing that and providing that avenue for men to really just release themselves and help other guys pinpoint what their issues are, and then do what they can to help them with that.
Absolutely. I totally agree 100%. And, my biggest call to action, especially for myself, I don't want to be the guy that's 80, 90 years old on my deathbed, looking back, and I hear it all the time, whether it's guys in the group talking to their fathers, hey, I had an opportunity to do this. I passed. I should have invested here. I should have did this. I don't want to be that regret guy. I want to look back on my crazy, insane, blessed life and going, yeah, it was nutty at times. But man, that's what life's all about. It's just not going, I call it the lazy river scenario. You go to a lazy river, you jump in a tube. I cannot stinking stand that. If I'm going to play hockey, I want to play with 20-year-olds. Okay? I don't want to play with guys it's horrible. But the lazy river, you just get in a tube. I want to grab my kids and go up the opposite way, go upstream, whether you're flipping people over and, the security guards or the lifeguards are just getting mad at you. But man, that's what life is all about. Because you're going to, like I said, you're going to have that talk to yourself when you're 80, 90 years old, and you're going to look back and you're going to smile if you decide to take the crazy road upstream and not follow everybody going down.
Excellent. Yeah, get out of that stagnant water and go make some waves in your life. That's where the fun is at.
Amen.
Wonderful. So we're going to pay it forward. You ready to do that, Ray?
Absolutely.
All right. Hey guys, listen. As I get a little bit older, I'm 48 now, I'm noticing that more and more of my peers, my high school friends, my Army buddies, a lot of these guys are just in terrible, terrible shape. And I got to admit, I'm not in the best shape of my life right now because I've got some elements of my own. But I'm still living a healthy life. And I attribute that to just constantly moving and eating about 70, maybe 80% healthy, closer to 70% healthy. And the biggest thing that I attribute that to is this dense nutrition shake that I've been drinking for well over 7 years. And my wife and I both have been drinking this stuff. It greatly improved my cholesterol many years ago. It has improved my joint health. It has improved my esophageal reflux. It improved her diabetes. Look, I just can't say enough about Shakeology ever since I first discovered it. You can learn more about my story with this stuff and why I drink it at menofabundance.com/shake. And listen, by purchasing your bag of Shakeology, it seems a little bit expensive at first, but when you consider that it's 1 meal a day that you're paying for, if you were to pay for 1 meal a day, add that up, and I guarantee you it's going to be more than the cost of a bag of Shakeology. And there's a money-back guarantee, a 30-day bottom-of-the-bag money-back guarantee. But here's the thing. When you purchase from that link, I do get a kickback here at Men of Abundance. And that's extremely important because at this point, as far as my wife is concerned, this Men of Abundance podcast is nothing more than a hobby and an expensive hobby at that. To me, it's not a hobby. It is me sharing these amazing conversations with you, and I know you're getting value out of it. So I want to add more value to your life, to you and your family, by introducing you to Shakeology and getting a little bit of kickback so that I can help keep the mic on over here at Men of Abundance, so I can introduce you to even more amazing men, select women, and even a few couples. Give Shakeology a try for just 30 days, and if you're like me, many years ago, I totally expected to get my money back on the 28th day. I just could not bring it upon myself because I felt so freaking amazing. My cholesterol was greatly improved. So many other things changed in my health and my lifestyle. I just couldn't return the empty bag. And here I am over 7 years later still drinking it. Give it a try. Go to menofabundance.com/shake. And as an added bonus, once I see that you've ordered your bag of Shakeology, or just shoot me an email to let me know that you did, and I will set up for you a personalized meal plan just for you. We're just going to have to get on the phone for a minute. All right, now back to the conversation. So give our abundant leaders 1 to 3 actionable steps that they can take today.
Action steps. Number 1, write something down. If there's something in your head, in your heart that you haven't acted on or you've been thinking about, put it on paper. Because if it's not on paper, most of the time, you and I know this, it's not going to happen. And the simplest thing I talk to my mastermind groups around is putting it on paper, whether it's a to-do list, whether it's a business idea, put it on paper, keep it in a book. If you want to get technology savvy, you can download an app for it, but put it on paper. Because all of a sudden it's going to be in your head, then all of a sudden some craziness is going to happen in your life with the wife or the kids or the job, and it all of a sudden get pushed to the back. But you got to keep whatever the dreams, the goals, the things for your family, you need to write them on paper and take action now. All right, I'm 50, Wally. You're probably right around my age, I'm thinking. I am losing too many friends from either cancer, heart attacks, divorce. It's driving me stinking crazy because there was no action. When it comes to a relationship, if things are messed up, you need to counsel. You need to get out there. You need to, like you just said earlier, get in with a group, a positive group of men that are going to point you in the right direction. Don't let it go, and all of a sudden you end up in nowhere's land and we're lost. And like I said, with cancer, with friends of mine dying, it drives me crazy. You want to set your family up. You want to take action now for your family if you're not going to take it for yourself.
Absolutely agree. Great action steps. I truly appreciate that. What daily habits make the biggest impact in your life?
Maybe I'm old school. To-do list. If you don't put a to-do list together in the morning, I do start out with my Bible readings, just kind of getting in the Word, just letting God kind of sink into my heart to see where He's going to direct my day. Right after that, it's a to-do list. Because if you don't put that list down or you don't have some kind of navigational tool on paper, life is going to happen. You're going to wake up 30 years down the road going, how did I wake up here?
Exactly. What are you reading or listening to now that you'd recommend to our abundant leaders, and why?
Let's see. Right now, we've actually sharing this with our mastermind groups. It is a book called Grit, Grit, by Angela Duckworth. Unbelievable. Talk about, and you're a military guy, talk about a book that's going to figure out what your grit level is. In other words, how tough you are, how to increase your grit level, how to get some grit in your life. Fantastic, fantastic book. Highly recommend it.
I've heard that one a couple times before, and of course we'll have that linked up and everything else we talk about here in the show notes at menofabundance.com. Just search Ray. Episode will pop right up, complete with timestamps, so you can go click on the timestamp. It'll time travel you directly to whatever point of the show that you want to listen to, so you don't have to go through all the other stuff. But you know what? I even listen to my own shows a couple times. I love listening to podcasts, and I go back and listen to whole shows quite often. So, Ray, what do you think holds most people back from living a true life of abundance?
I would imagine it's the fear of the unknown. It's normally the fear of the unknown comes from the folks you're hanging around with. Robert Kiyosaki, there's several authors that talk about this. You know, you are who you hang around with. Whether you believe that or not, I've got folks that I work with that says there is no way. And then 5-6 months down the road, we can point in that direction, because people will lift you up or they're going to hold you back. And I remember my first company at 17, 18 years old, my mom said, hey, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be fun. It's going to be hard, but you can do it. I went to my 3 closest friends at the time. Literally, they laughed. All 3 of them said, you're going to be a landscaper. You're going to be cutting my grass. Literally, my neighbor, I was really good friends with, literally like threw $10 at me and said, here you go, dude. Cut my grass. That's a joke, and walked in the house. So think about who you hang around with. That's a huge, like you just talked about, podcasts. I mean, you have this free, awesome resources of podcasts out there. Got to watch who you listen to with podcasts too, but it's out there. You need to change your friends. Don't get me wrong. I got friends that I love, that I pray for every day, that I'm praying that God's working in their lives in a positive way. But man, guys like yourself having this conversation today, I mean, I'm ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, every time I have these conversations, I'm just so pumped up. And the fact is, you are, in fact, the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And that's rather you spend it with in person, you spend it with them on a podcast while you're driving back and forth to work, you spend the time with them by reading their books, whatever it is, that's spending time with those positive people that are there really to, and you do need the live people. You need those live people like we were talking about in the groups. You need those people that are going to hold you accountable, call you out when you need to be called out, and tell you stop that, or you need to do more of this type of thing, and just really hold you accountable. You absolutely need that in your life.
Absolutely.
So what does living a life of abundance mean to you, Ray?
I think living a life of abundance is, number one, loving your family through everything, whether the financial blessings are there or they're not. Understanding you have responsibilities, you have a family. I'm a big fan of serving. So when you, especially if you're the man of the house, when you start serving, whether it's through community service, whether it's through church, I'm a children's minister here for elementary on Sunday mornings. When you start rolling those wheels, your kids get that. I mean, I have a 10-year-old girl that literally like will go in the kids' rooms, you know, the 2 and 3-year-olds, and just sit there for hours and take care of that. But you need to lay down those guidelines of just serving and having that servant heart. Because here's the deal: if we're in it for ourselves, you know, we men have enough selfish junk in us already. When you go out and just love other people and serve other people, man, I'm telling you, it makes it so much easier on all the garbage that's inside. When you focus on others, man, that's the best thing you can give someone out there.
That's the best thing you can give someone and give yourself, because it truly does come back tenfold.
Absolutely.
So we're going to close this up, and before we do, I'd like for you to share with us, what did we not talk about that you would like for Men of Abundance to get out of our conversation?
Let's see. I guess the biggest thing, and we just talked about, is just, taking that action step, whether it be a mastermind, whether it's personal coaching with yourself, finding a group, finding some new friendships. I'm a big fan of just saying hello to people in everyday life. You never know who you have an opportunity to shake hands with or meet at the gas station. I've met some fantastic people literally walking on the beach of Fernandina over the last 2 years that just talk about being great mentors and great friends. I mean, we have all these opportunities, but most of us are so worried about ourselves. We have our head down. We're not even looking forward. We need to keep our eyes in the game, keep our eyes ahead of us, and just look for opportunities to move ourselves on and move our families on.
Excellent. So share with us any other way that we can reach you other than your website or anything else that you have coming up. I know we're definitely going to have GameChangingDads.com linked up in the show notes, but if there's any other way that our guys can get a hold of you if they care to do so, how can they do that?
You can check us out. We're on, or I should say, I'm on Facebook. You can look me under Ray Matz, M-A-T-Z, or Raymond, R-A-Y-M-O-N-D, Matz. And like you said, Game Changing Dads. We have the podcast. We have all the information from the masterminds and all the coaching packages. Excellent.
Outstanding. We'll have all of that linked up in the show notes, guys. You don't have to write any of that down right now. I know you're driving or working out or doing your thing. Truly appreciate you all listening. And Ray, I appreciate your time and the wisdom you shared with our abundant leaders today.
Wally, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Aloha. All right, guys, listen, we talk about it all the time. Many of you are so resistant to getting into mastermind groups or even considering getting into a group of guys. Look, many of us over the years, we do everything from going to the bar, hanging out with the guys, getting together, watching a game, having some drinks, going to a strip club, doing all these type of things that are, in the most part, destructive for our lifestyle, destructive for our families, and they don't get us anywhere that we want to be. Why don't you just make a little bit of a shift and get with a group of other like-minded individuals who are wanting to progress in life, improve their family, have a better relationship with their spouse, have better relationships with their kids, have better experiences at work and your job, be able to lead your employees better or be a better follower if you're an employee, and so much more. There are so many reasons to get into a mastermind group, and find a group of guys that you resonate with, whether they're bearded men, former military, wannabe military, whatever the case may be, entrepreneurs, current entrepreneurs, seasoned entrepreneurs. There are so many different groups to get into. Not all of them are just men's groups. I do focus on just men's groups for my own personal reasons, but there are many different types of mentorship groups, mastermind groups that you can be a part of. And I suggest you explore. Get into certain groups, see what the dynamics are like. If it's not what you dig, if it's not who you are, if you can't resonate with it, then go move on. Take a little bit from that group and move on and find a group that is good for you. Many of these groups are at church. Some of them are not. I personally like the ones that are like the ones that Ray was talking about today, like his group or Aaron Walker's group, or even the group that I'm building on Facebook myself. I have a free group that I'm building, and I have a paid group that I'm getting ready to start building. So it's all about what you want and what your goals are in life and who you can resonate with. But it is extremely important. Now, go out and live your life of abundance. And guys, make sure to pay it forward.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.